Good evening and welcome back to, we're going to do the review between chapters 20 and 21. Should have done that before we delved into chapter 21, but we got it a little backwards. But this review, I think, will be helpful to summarize what we've already, the point we've come to in the verb system. Remember, we started off with the English grammar and then the present tense in Greek. And then we looked at the future tense, and there was another chapter on the future, which included liquid futures. And then we got into the imperfect tense, which was actually chapter 21. But now we're going back a little bit and picking up some of the more important things that we need to keep in our mind. One of the things that gave me a little confusion was the terminology which he started using in this fourth edition of his book. The second and third edition, which I was much more familiar with, didn't use the terms imperfective and perfective to define different aspects. And I decided when we got into it that I'd use the older terms. Instead of imperfective, we decided to use the continuous aspect, of which the present tense is one and the imperfect tense is another example of continuous aspect. The undefined aspect, which he also termed the perfective, but I'm intending to use the term undefined. That's what we could think of as the simple present, which doesn't tell you anything about the anything other than that it happened in present time. It may have been completed, it may have been going on for some time and continuing in the present, but it just doesn't tell you that. We'll be coming up in chapter 23 to the, no, I believe it's chapter 22, to the aorist tense, which is an undefined aspect in past time. Remember, we had in chapter 21, the continuous aspect in past time was the imperfect tense, but the aorist tense is undefined in past time. Generally, in past time, there are a few exceptions to that. And I'm looking at the first question or first part of the review now on page 83 of the workbook. He throws in this term punctiliar, and he only made reference to it in one place in 15.10. And I'd like to read that with you again. We did read it, but we didn't stress it very well. In 15.10 of the textbook, he talks about perfective and punctiliar. Well, I'm going to use the word undefined instead of perfective. In present tense, you have two options to either use the undefined aspect or the continuous aspect. We talked about that. Undefined was I eat. Continuous is I am eating. But there's a possibility with some verbs of having punctiliar action. Punctiliar means point action. And it depends on the meaning of the verb. For instance, the verb hit is a good example of punctiliar. It happens at a point in time, both in present tense and in past tense. You could probably think of other examples, strike, for instance, or fell or fall. I fall. I suppose fall takes a little bit of time, but essentially it's a point action. There used to be in the older grammars a misunderstanding, I think, of aorist tense being point action, but that's not true. That there are some aorist tense, just like there are some present tense that are point action, but not necessarily so. So there's three, I guess you would call them different aspects, but I would say that the punctiliar is a subset of the undefined aspect. So the wording that I used in this first question, continuous is ongoing action, a process that takes or it took place over a period of time. Undefined is a simple event without reference to duration. It just says that it happens or happened. And punctiliar is action that happens or happened at a single point in time. Now, I think he probably introduced this idea of punctiliar action prematurely, because in the chapter on aorist, he's got a good discussion about it, and I'd like to point that out to you right now. It's in 22.21. I know it's not in the chapter that we've studied so far, but this makes it clearer than what he already said. Undefined versus punctiliar. This is in 22.21. One of the primary areas of confusion in Greek exegesis comes when people confuse the Greek perfective aspect, or rather undefined aspect, with the English punctiliar aspect. The English punctiliar describes an action as occurring at a single point in time. The tidal wave hit the boat. Okay, so there's the verb hit. The Greek undefined is not necessarily punctiliar. It tells you nothing about the action of the verb except that it happened. Part of the misconception surrounding the Greek perfective or undefined aspect is due to the fact that it can be used to describe a punctiliar action. However, such a verb is not punctiliar because of its aspect, but because of the context and the meaning of the word. You cannot use the continuous aspect to describe a punctiliar action, so by default you would use the undefined. Does that help at all? I'll tell you what, let's hold off till we get to aorist tense, and we'll talk about it.
I understand that example.
Yeah.
Was that the tidal wave hit the boat, but
yeah.
No matter what tense you would put that in, and I don't know in the Greek what's possible, but that sense that the tidal wave hit the boat is punctiliar no matter what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you conjugate it in aorist or perfective. No, imperfect. No, I'm sorry, perfective, undefined.
Yeah.
It in a sense it's perfective, but in another sense, it's punctiliar. But in another sense, nothing's truly punctiliar. In English, it would be really bizarre to say I hit the ball, to mean. See, the difficulty with this is we don't really use English. Doesn't really work that way either. We don't say I hit the ball. That is very strange. I would have to say I am hitting the ball to mean what I'm doing in this very moment. And so that punctiliar consideration in English is actually I am hitting the ball to mean what I'm actually doing right this moment. And so I'm not sure that that
Well,
the translation into the, as we've been doing, the translation of the perfective or the undefined into this idea of a continuing thing is necessarily always that simple, because we really don't mean it in English. I don't, when I say I am hitting the ball, it means something I'm doing right at this moment, but it doesn't change the way that we perceive that happening.
okay.
Okay,
I
so I
think
mean, I
we
think
ought to-
it's really kind
yeah.
of an odd that we're making some really hair-splitting
Yeah,
statements
we
that
are.
I think are actually pretty odd.
And the reason I think he's making an issue of it is because in the older Greek grammars,
Mhm.
they had a misconception about punctiliar action. They used to think that aorist was always point action, which it's not. But
Okay,
let's leave that. That's, like you say, it's hair splitting. Let's get,
okay, we haven't gotten to Eris yet, so.
no,
He made a statement in that chapter in back in 15, I think, that perfective can describe punctiliar.
yes.
So, you know, and I don't remember if he had an example of it. And in that example of the wave hitting the boat, that would be that would be the I guess that I'm sorry, that's the past tense, which it isn't. I'm sorry, it's the we study. What's the name of that tense?
Uh,
In front of me.
what the imperfect tense?
Yeah, the imperfect tense, right?
Yeah,
Which some
continuous action in past time.
right, but sometimes that might really best be understood as something that's punctiliar, is what he's saying, right?
No,
No, I'm sorry, that's the
continuous aspect cannot be punctiliar.
all right,
Only
sorry, imperfect. Yeah,
yeah.
never mind. Perfective. We haven't gotten
The
to the
problem
aorist
is
yet.
he's using the term imperfective to mean undefined,
Right.
but imperfective and
I
imperfect tense.
sense I looked something up and found that these statements that there was a description of things in some of these ways that had nothing necessarily to do with Greek. I have a sense that linguists today who deal with this are using these terms he's
Yeah,
then promoting, but this is just the way they talk about it,
Mhm.
and the rest of us haven't caught up.
Yeah, and I'd rather not use those terms.
Yeah.
Okay, write out the 12 forms of luo. I don't think that's necessary to talk about. If you did
Yeah,
it,
did it.
yeah. And then write out the master indicative verb chart. Well, we just did it. It's an attempt to help us memorize and fix it in our mind. Okay. Then number 4, he talks about the contraction rules. Big 5 rules. Now these 5 are helpful to me.
Mm-hmm.
The Omicron upsilon, that's the oo sound, is formed from 3 different possibilities, either epsilon plus Omicron, or Omicron plus epsilon, or Omicron plus Omicron. And I guess we could have given some examples of it, but
Yeah.
and then epsilon iota,
Iota.
excuse me,
Sorry.
that diphthong A is how it's pronounced, is formed from epsilon plus epsilon. And if you did these, if you wrote these down,
Almost worthy of a flashcard or something. Just something that I found these helpful in parsing.
Okay, so the omega is the one that kind of overrides almost any combination except for the rule 1, where you've got the Omicron plus epsilon or Omicron plus Omicron. And then the 4th and 5th rules, alpha plus epsilon or epsilon plus alpha, either way, the first one wins out and is lengthened. That's the way so if you've got alpha plus epsilon, the result would be alpha, but it's a long alpha, which we don't really make a distinction between long alpha and short alpha. So it just looks the same. If you have epsilon plus alpha, the first one, epsilon, gets lengthened to eta.
Right.
All right.
And if there's an iota involved, it's subscripts.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Well, I don't know whether to take the time to, if you've done this, you use the rules to come up with it. Did you have any trouble with those in number 5?
No, I kind of listed a bunch of the ones out for omega.
Okay.
And I think that when I looked at, I don't think I found that iota is actually involved in any of these, but because I don't think it acts that way, but
All right.
yeah, maybe it does somewhere, but
number 6, alpha or A, the present active. Oh, he's asking the question, how do you form the following English tenses with the verb eat? Well, the present active continuous, or another term that's sometimes used as progressive in English, you form it by adding the helping verb to be, which would be I am, you are, or he, she, or it is, plus the present participle. Example, I am eating. Present participle is the ing form of the verb. And the present passive or simple, present passive undefined or simple is another term, is formed by using that same helping verb, am, are, or is, plus the past participle, which is for the verb eat, it's eaten. I am eaten.
a bad day.
What's that?
It was a bad day.
Yes. Okay. Would somebody like to do number 7? What's a deponent verb? And give an example.
Drew, you got up?
Sure. All right, so we'll see. I don't think I'm quite back up to snuff with where I was on verbs, but we'll see how this goes. So, but a deponent verb, also known as a middle only
Very
verb,
good. Mm-hmm.
right?
That's right.
Is only formed in the middle and is never given an active form.
Right.
And my example, let's try this. Apokrinomai?
Apokrinomai. Yes. Yes.
Apokrinomai. Yeah. Is a middle only or deponent verb.
Mm-hmm.
I think it means to ask.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
How do you identify a deponent verb from the lexicon?
Well, in the lexicon, it will take the first person middle form, singular middle form, with the my ending at the end.
Yes. Mm-hmm. That's right. The wording I had and my answer was, it's a verb which does not have an active form. It only occurs in the middle and or passive, but it has an active meaning.
Right.
An example that I gave is erkomai. You can't think of, well, erkomai means I go or I come.
Right.
How can you think of that being in a passive voice? It doesn't work.
Right.
So it doesn't exist in the passive.
Or the active, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
well, it's got an active meaning.
Right, but so that verb actually only has I'm sorry. So the middle and the passive forms are the same, but it has
In the present tense, they are, yes.
But does it actually ever have anything other than a middle in the other tenses? I'm just curious.
I think
in the other tenses, Oops. What is that, Drew?
I was going to say, I think the book said some verbs might start having different forms in different tenses, but it didn't
Yes,
mention
they
any
did.
specific ones.
For instance, the aorist tense, which we'll get to, has a separate middle from the passive. It doesn't have the same form. In the present tense and in the imperfect tense, the two that we've studied so far, the middle and passive are identical in form because the imperfect is based on the present tense. But that's not true in the aorist or the perfect tense either. They've got a separate form for the middle and passive. Okay, the square of stops. What are the three labials?
P, rho, sorry, yeah. P, beta, and sorry, these things confuse me. Phi.
Phi, right. What are the three velars?
Kappa, gamma, and chi.
That's right. And the three dentals?
Someone else go.
Okay,
Yeah,
Drew.
Drew.
Drew, you got
Tau, delta, theta.
That's right. What are the three that are classified as voiced?
Oh, the last column. Oh, not quite.
No. Okay. Try sounding it out. Is that voiced? What about ba? Is that voiced?
Yes.
Okay. So P is unvoiced. Beta, B, ba, is voiced. The phi is voiced, but it's also what they call aspirate.
Mm.
It uses the breath sound. So the third column is the aspirates. And that's with the velars, the K is unvoiced, the gamma, G is voiced, and the chi is aspirate. In the dentals, tau, the t sound is unvoiced, duh is voiced, and the is aspirate.
That's interesting, I suppose, but I don't really I guess I don't understand what that means because I certainly hear the sound.
Yeah.
Isn't voiced if you're engaging your vocal cords to make the sound it's voiced.
That's right. That's
Okay.
right. And it'll become.
How is B using?
P, b.
No, but I'm not sure.
Not the name of the letter, but the
Abe.
sound of the letter.
Abe. Go ahead.
Well, I'm talking about the initial letter. I mean, when the.
Well, I guess I don't know. I'll take your word for it. Okay. I don't know.
You can feel it in your neck if you put your fingers on your neck and you say pan as opposed to ban.
Pan, yeah. That's right.
Okay.
And then when you combine a sigma with any of those three types of stops, in the first case with labels, the sigma added to any one of those three becomes a psi. With the velars, the sigma added to any one of those three becomes a psi.
Oh, I'm sorry, psi.
Yeah, you can sort of see it with the kappa. Kappa plus sigma is xi. Remember that word sarx?
Mm-hmm.
But with the dentals, tau, delta, or theta, the addition of a sigma just causes the dental to drop out. All right. Then we had, question 9. What's the difference between a verbal root and a tense stem? Somebody want to answer that?
So I don't know if this is the way you phrased it, but I said the root is sort of the core of the verb.
Yeah,
It's
he used the most basic form.
Okay, the most
Yeah.
basic form of the verb, but the core of the verb. Whereas the
Mhm.
stem is the form of the verb which indicates its tense. So we're going to get into the different ways you can do that.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's modifying the root, sometimes it's a different root, sometimes it's just the root.
that's right. That was well said. The way I worded the stem is a verb's most basic form in a particular tense. Luo has the same root as tense in all tenses, but that's not true of a lot of words.
Mm.
Okay. Number 10, what are the three basic ways in which tense stems are formed from verbal roots? Well, I think I'll answer this one. The first method is that the root is not changed to form the tense stem. That's a pattern 1 verb. He talks about it in 19.3. An example of that is luo, where the root and the stem are identical, lambda upsilon. The second category, or the second pattern, is where you have different roots that are used to form the different tense stem. It's talked about in 20.4 under pattern 2. Example, Lego. The present tense stem is leg, but the future tense stem is epsilon rho. It comes from a totally different root. So that's pattern 2. The third possibility, which is patterns 3 and 4, is talked about in 20.5 through 20.23, is where the root is changed in a regular way to form the tense stems. For example, meno, the root is men, mu epsilon nu. It forms a liquid future. That's one possibility. Balo, the present tense stem is beta alpha double lambda, but the root is beta alpha single lambda. And then another possibility under patterns 3 and 4 is the word baptizo, where the root is baptid, ending with a delta, or it could be a different stop. It will change form, but it does it in a regular way based on the square of stops or other considerations. I think that's enough for that. As we use these, they'll become more familiar to you. Did you do any of the parsing? I think you did all of them.
Yeah.
Drew? I mean, Dave, did you do any?
I got through the parsing. I haven't gotten very far in the translation.
Okay. Okay, Drew, pick one and parse it.
Okay, well, actually, I'll just start with the first one.
Okay.
All right.
Akuata.
Akuata. Akuata. All right,
Mhm.
akuata, which I said was a verb. It's third person, plural, present active indicative, lexical form, akuo,
Yeah.
and it means in the inflected meaning here would be they hear or are hearing.
Well, actually, Drew, it's second person plural.
Oh, it's second person plural.
Third person plural would be
Ooh,
akusi,
okay.
but this is akuata, second plural.
So that would be y'all here.
That's right. Mhm. Or if you wanted to give the continuous aspect, you are hearing.
Right.
Those are both possibilities for the present tense. Okay. I'll do the second one. Akuses. This is second singular. future, alpha, indicative. And the way you can tell, it's got the sigma there after the stem and before the ending. That's the tense formative. Comes from the same lexical form, and it means you singular will hear. Dave, you want to pick one and parse it?
Sure, 3. Paru, Parautai.
Paruatai.
Paruatai.
Mhm.
So I believe that is present and I believe it's deponent
You're right.
because the lexical is got the omai,
Mhm.
paruomai.
Mhm.
So this is third person singular
Yes.
and present tense. So it is he, she, or it is going or coming.
Okay. How about number 4? Is that a verb?
It's not.
Nope.
This one took me a bit.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was looking for a verb. It made it harder.
Hustinos.
Yes.
Rough breathing there. It comes from the lexical form hostis. It's actually 2 words joined together, hos, which is a relative pronoun, and tis, which is an it's an
Interrogative, right?
well, if it had an accent, it would be interrogative,
Okay,
but
so
it's
what-
indefinite. It's an indefinite relative pronoun.
So what's tis by itself then?
Tis is that third declension noun that it means who, what, or why.
Okay, well, I thought that's what I meant when I said interrogative. I think that's the wrong thing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I was wrong about that, Dave.
Okay.
If it had an accent, it would be that. But this is the indefinite pronoun, someone, anyone,
Okay.
or a
All right.
certain one.
Yes. We did have that.
Yeah.
And so then this is instead of being someone, it's like whoever or whomever. which is
Whomever.
fine,
Yeah. This is accusative. The alpha sigma tells you that. And accusative plural masculine from hostis. So you decline each half of it separately. So who is the first part, and whose, excuse me, that's the third. No.
That's okay.
I'm thinking about verbs now. But whose is the accusative plural masculine, and tinos is accusative plural masculine for the last half.
You have to conjugate both sides of both
right.
parts of it together.
Yeah, each half declines separately.
Decline.
But it means whomever.
Okay.
It took me some time to figure that out too. I want to skip down to number 11. La lo. Now that looks kind of like a liquid future. However, it's not a liquid stem. This is a contract verb. Do you know what the lexical form of this verb is?
Yeah.
What is it?
Oh, laleo.
That's right.
Actually,
So
Drew would have gotten this. He already used this one as an example earlier, I think.
okay.
Or did you? No.
No.
You didn't.
But I did get to the root. Sorry, the lexical form, and just wasn't sure about it.
Well, with the contract verb, with the contraction, it will lengthen the. Hold on a minute.
This is those rules we just used.
Yeah. Page 178 is where he talks about it. Let's look at that. Just remind ourselves about it. Oh,
Oh, that's I don't know, this really weird thing because what he's getting at is the fact you can't have oh. I mean, we have a lexical which isn't an actual form that can exist.
yeah. The lexical forms that he gives us.
And that's
It's
rule
an
G.
artificial word. La is the stem.
Yeah. And that's rule 5 under number 4 of this thing. Not 5, I'm sorry, rule G. Am I doing it? Yeah. Am I getting myself confused? Yeah. Where's no, C, 3. Rule C or 3, omega is formed from almost anything.
Okay, yeah.
With an omicron or an omega, except
that's right.
for the thing to number 1. So we really have to shorten the oh, that's not real. And
Yeah.
what's confusing to me is that we make that the lexical form. I mean, it seems odd. That's all.
Well, in the older grammars, they didn't use first person singular as the lexical form. They used the infinitive form, like we do in English.
Oh, okay.
And so they didn't have that issue. But when you, in order to distinguish between the 3 forms of contract verbs, either alpha or epsilon or omega or omicron,
You have to show that.
you put that vowel in there between the stem and the ending.
Okay. Okay. Otherwise, you don't know what
That's right.
is.
It's a helpful thing, but it created an artificial word.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, so this one is first singular, the omega ending tells you that. Present active indicative from la leo, meaning I speak or I am speaking. What about number 12? Anybody have trouble with that?
About to find out.
Okay, I think I have it.
What did you do with it?
So, we'll see if this is anywhere close to right. So I said this was the third singular present active indicative of ora or ow
Orao.
orao. So it would be he sees or is seeing.
Well, actually, it's not third singular, it's second singular.
Again,
Yeah, that's a weird one.
What future tense? Component?
Well, the future, yes, this is a future because it
Yes.
comes from a different root. Opsami is the root of the future. Where did we learn that?
Oh, good gosh, yeah. Which is really kind of bizarre.
Yeah, it is.
Right. Okay, so our second person. Oh, wait, what makes it second person?
Well, let's look at.
Um,
Do you have one of those cheat sheets?
so it's probably because it was probably epsilon iota. Am I getting warm? And
Right, but
and then
doesn't
there
that
was a
make it
sigma.
third?
For some reason, no,
Because it was just epsilon iota, and now it's
I don't remember why the sigma.
subscript.
Yeah,
I don't know what
subscript.
happened to the. I don't know what happened to the sigma.
I'll have to look and find
Something
that.
weird about that. And
It
I don't
is,
remember
yeah.
why.
Okay, I know where to look here. Page 185, the master personal ending chart. When you've got a middle or passive voice, which opsami is middle. In the future tense.
Oh, it's not, yeah,
And
this is
so this-
actually, yeah, middle voice.
Yeah, so the
Stigma.
endings, yeah, the ending for second singular is eta with the iota subscript.
Yeah, that's what it is. And then,
Oh, wow. Okay.
He gives a paradigm in 18.8 with Urkamai, and there you see it again.
sigma, yeah, sigma eta iota subscript. And
Those,
because it's well, that's how, okay, so
Oh.
sigma went where? I mean, that's because it's,
it combined with the P.
there was a,
P plus sigma is a C.
because it's opsimi,
Yeah, up.
up,
Up is the
oh, it's up,
stem.
oh, and then, so what's the future root? I don't have it in front of me.
Wouldn't that just
Future
be
stem.
Omicron
What's the future
I-
stem?
The future stem is Omicron P. That's all.
on P
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
with the sigma,
The
and then that
sigma
turns
can-
into a psi
yeah,
or C.
yeah.
Excuse me.
Okay,
And
all right,
then the
yeah.
my ending.
That certainly works. I don't know. I'm sorry that I don't remember how I got these things.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I think probably I did the work here and you can compare it, but I don't want to take the time away from other things. I'd like to get to the translation because I think this is something
Okay.
very useful. So you can look at the rest of them. I think I've got mine correct. I hope I do. Translation, page 86. This is John 12:27-36.
Right.
Nun e psuke mu. Nun is an adverb meaning what?
Now,
Now. E psuke, the soul,
right.
and mu
Me?
of me. Now the soul of me, or now my soul. Tetaraktai has been troubled. This is the perfect tense, and
We haven't studied
the
yet.
perfect tense we haven't studied yet, but I've mentioned it, I think. It's a tense that has an action that was completed in the past, but the results continue to the present time, at least of the speaker. So sometimes you emphasize the past action, past aspect. Sometimes you emphasize the present aspect. So what I did to try to get the idea, my soul has been troubled and still is troubled. It's a lot of words to say it, but if you're trying to emphasize the past aspect, has been troubled, but this is something where Jesus is speaking, he's still troubled about it. So I think it's better to emphasize the continuous, the present aspect. My soul is troubled.
Yeah, he wanted to say has been. And I'm sorry. So perfect. So we're not really there yet. So the perfect tense is things that have been completed.
Yeah, it's an action that's been completed, but the results continue. A very good example of that is the word save, sozo. I am saved.
I have been
It
saved.
means I had been saved, but I'm still saved. Does that
Yeah,
help at
yeah.
all?
I'm trying to think of if there's any difference in the English understanding, because do we? So I have been, because would it mean some verbs you wouldn't do that way? I mean, I'm just trying to think what that means.
Yeah,
I okay. I did drive my car. It was completed, but it doesn't have any future.
yeah. I
What
have
that?
I have driven my car if it were in the perfect tense, you're still driving it. But if it was in the aorist tense, which is undefined.
Well, I'm trying to do an English of something because I have driven is not the same. I think in English because you don't say I have been driven I think you would say I did drive my car. Is that not
Yeah.
the same thing?
Yeah, I drove my car, or I did drive my car.
I did drive,
but
would complete it. Is that, I'm not sure. I'm just trying to think. We
well,
don't have the same, that's like, I don't even understand the English, why we do that, but okay. that's
well,
fine.
let's
Yeah, let's
use
move on.
what he had.
Yeah.
My soul has been troubled.
Yeah, most translations just say my soul is troubled.
Yeah, and that's
And-
because it's emphasizing the present aspect. The perfect tense is a dual type of tense, past action with continuing results. Okay, and going on, apo.
Yeah, and what?
Yeah, this is accusative singular neuter, and what? Apo is from Lego. That's one of those verbs that has two different roots. Apo means I. Well, it's aorist. What can I say?
Right.
And what can I say? There's the semicolon looking thing is a question mark. Pater. Now this is vocative. Pater would be nominative, but pater is vocative. Father, sosan. Well, this is also aorist, but in the zeta got changed to sigma. Save me, ektes horas tautes. What does that mean?
Something
Save
like
me.
from this hour.
Yes, from this. Yeah. The demonstrative pronoun this is almost always put after the noun that it's modifying.
So I'm sorry, save in that form is aorist?
Yeah, sosan. Sozo would be present tense.
I thought past discussions, aorist was a simple past. No?
Well, this is an aorist active imperative, not indicative. So it's got different endings.
Oh, okay, which we haven't even.
But he gives us the meaning save,
Okay, all right,
and the exclamation point indicates that it's imperative.
which becomes a present tense thing then?
Yeah, no, I'm sorry.
What?
This is aorist. In the non-indicative moods,
Mhm.
you don't pay much attention to the time of the verb, more so the aspect of the verb. So the imperative is not an indicative mood. It's what they call an oblique mood. And
Okay.
the time element of the verb is minimized.
So we just do something in English that makes sense? I mean, we
Save.
wouldn't get save,
Yeah.
but in other cases, might it be saved?
No, you wouldn't make a past tense into an imperative.
I guess that's true. So, well, then what I said was that in the imperative, if it's imperative, it's going to be current tense, or would it be possibly future? I mean,
I don't know if there is a future imperative.
okay,
No,
okay, all right.
but this is imperative. Save me from this hour, you said, Drew. Okay. Allah dia tuto. Dia tuto is an idiom meaning for this reason, or simply for this.
Yeah,
I
said
but
because of this.
For this reason, I came, he gives us that, estain horon tautain. It's similar to ectes horas tautes, but here it's Well, accusative instead of genitive. Well, for this reason, I came. Ace is to or into to this hour.
Mhm.
That makes sense?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, again, the vocative, pater, father, doxasan. Here's another imperative, glorify. Su ta anima. Su is of you or your. Ta anima, what's that mean?
Your name.
Your name, glorify your name, yes. Eilthan, Ishir it came. Un is a postpositive word, meaning what?
Therefore,
Therefore, what came? Phone, a voice. A voice came, ektu uranu,
heaven,
out of
heaven.
heaven.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I said from heaven, but okay.
Okay, now this chi isn't translated and. You've got a chi there and then another chi after edoxasa.
Yeah.
So this is what they call the correlative use of chi, both and.
Yeah.
Both I glorified it, you can supply it, and again, I will glorify it.
Right.
You can change the word order a little bit. I both glorified it and I will glorify it again.
Yeah, I thought I have both glorified and will glorify it again.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
good.
Have we, maybe I'm all jumbled up from reviewing. We haven't gotten to a simple past tense yet, right?
No,
No.
that will
Okay.
be the aorist.
So I will
Take
reserve
it.
my question of why there's an epsilon in front of that word for later.
Oh, well, we did study the imperfect tense, and
Mhm.
that uses the epsilon in front of the stem. It's called an augment.
Right. I forgot about
Now,
that.
the augment is used for any type of past tense, either imperfect or aorist or perfect tense. Well, no, wait, perfect tense, it's got a different type of situation, but anyway, for the imperfect and aorist, yes, you have the augment. Now, the epsilon is the form of the augment when the stem starts with a consonant. But if the stem or root starts with a vowel, you don't put the epsilon there, but instead you lengthen the initial vowel. An alpha and an epsilon would both get lengthened to eta, and omicron would get lengthened to omega. So that epsilon is the augment. So I both glorified it and I will glorify it again. Verse 29. A un achlas. How would you translate that?
Therefore the crowd.
Okay. And then you repeat the ha because this is the second attributive position. Remember that?
Yeah.
Okay. The crowd, the one standing.
Right.
And akusas,
Hearing.
that's hearing, he gives it to us. The one standing and hearing. Now, elegant, that's an imperfect tense from Lego.
Mm.
And he gives it to us, but he didn't need to because we We learned the imperfect. No, we didn't learn
No,
imperfect
we-
until chapter 21.
Right. So, yeah,
Uh,
I'm thinking, yeah, we
he
did learn
was
that, but he
saying-
was, yeah.
Yeah, so the crowd was saying that
That, yeah.
that it thundered.
Where do you have that?
Well,
It was thundering.
yeah, it
I'm-
was.
I mean, it was not thundering.
Yeah.
It was thunder.
Yeah, that's the way we
So-
do it in English. It's thundering.
I did this. I said, therefore the crowd standing there, because and you got to do
Okay.
something because
Yeah.
we don't say the crowd standing and hearing. I guess you could just say
Yeah,
the
that's-
crowd standing and
Yeah.
hearing
You could.
was saying it was thunder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it is thunder. Well, wait a minute. Gegonenai. That's an infinitive.
Did I get that
Literally,
right?
it's
Tense.
thunder to have happened.
Did
Um,
He gave us a thing and told us to translate it.
Footnote
That it was thunder. Yeah, he
Yeah,
said to
that-
say that it was thunder.
yeah, that's
And
an idiomatic way of saying
And
it.
I didn't put that in there, but
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
All right. So I just took
Saying that
his
it was
translation. So are you saying it okay. So it is past. It is a
Well, the
what
Bronte
kind of
is
verb is it?
a noun. It's accusative singular feminine. And
Right, but
thunder
Gegon-
to have
Gegon-
happened is actually,
Well, but
the
this
little-
verb is gegon.
yeah, that's from ginomai.
And what is that?
Ginomai means it I become, or became to be, or is, or
All right.
it's a very flexible
And what
verb.
is this conjugation then? And
Well, that's an infinitive. It's a perfect active infinitive. We haven't had that yet.
that thunder became?
Well,
The thunder happened.
Happen is
The thunder
another.
happened is really what
Thunder happened, yeah.
it is a past tense or
It's a perfect tense, which, forget that. You don't need to know that.
all right. I don't
Okay,
know.
some people were saying it thundered,
Okay.
that it was thunder.
Mhm.
Alloy, remember
others.
allos?
Yes.
What does alloy mean?
Others.
Others, plural, yeah.
Right.
We're saying,
It's a nominative.
comma, and here's what they said. Angelos autolelolican. Okay, angelos means what?
An angel.
An angel. Auto, dative singular
To
masculine,
him.
to him, has spoken. An angel has spoken to him. Apokrythe, he's given us that. That means he, she, or it answered. Comes from apokrynomai. This is the passive of it. It's deponent. Jesus answered, Kai apen, and said. Apen is, I think, a verb that he's given us a meaning. It's aorist from Lego. Here's what he said. You can put it in quotation marks. U, di, and me. U means what?
Not.
Not. Di with the accusative means on account of.
Mm-hmm.
Not on account of me. A phone,
Wait.
haute.
This.
This, yeah, that's
Not on account of me,
demonstrative.
this voice.
Not on account of me, this voice, gegonen, that's came or happened. It's from the same word, genomai.
Okay. That's good.
Okay, Allah, it's a conjunction.
But
Rather. Oh.
yep, brother, yeah.
Well, yeah, you're right, Drew. It came originally from allos, another. And you can kind of see how but Another thing is but.
Sure.
But it has been kind of standardized to mean but.
Well, rather's the same, has the same meaning, right? As but in English.
Well, you could think of it as alternatively, maybe.
These are all synonyms.
Yeah, but Allah has come to mean but or however.
Okay.
But D emas. D with the accusative again is on account of. What's humas?
You.
You plural, yeah.
Right. It's dative.
Or you could say for your sake. Nun crisis. Nun is now. Crisis. Judgment. Is. Cosmu. To cosmu. That's genitive. Right. Of the world.
Of the world.
Now, judgment is of the world. And tutu is modifying cosmu, this world.
Right.
Nun ha-arkon. Remember what arche means?
Yeah, the prince.
Prince or ruler. Now the ruler to cosmu, tutu, of this world. Ek blethesetai. Will be cast out. He gives it to us.
So he gives us will be cast out, and then we have out.
That's right, because the Greeks often repeat the preposition cast out, outside. That's proper Greek instruction, but we wouldn't do that in English.
Okay, so it really does read that way.
It's redundant in English.
I looked at it and thought, did he make a mistake?
No.
Okay.
That's the way the Greeks did it. He will be cast out outside.
Are you really sure you're sure?
Yes, I'm sure of that.
No, I'm messing with you. Are you sure you're sure?
Oh.
Cast out.
Okay. By the way, this is from ekbalo, and this is the future passive, which has a different form from future middle. So
Greek verbs might kill me.
Yeah. Okay, kago, that's a crasis of kai plus ego.
Right. And I.
Eon, it's another form of if.
So
if.
Okay. So I'm gonna. This could be when, right? Is that not the case that this could mean when?
There are times when it could be translated that way.
Because is he really saying if I'm lifted up?
This is subjunctive. There's no doubt about the fact that he will be lifted up.
Oh, I know that he was, but yeah. I just wondered if this.
But that's the form that it takes. It's put in the subjunctive mood because it's future. Subjunctive is the mood of contingency.
Okay.
And possibility, probability, if-ability. But in the case of deity, when deity is spoken of in the subjunctive mood, or at least something that God or Jesus Christ is intending to do, it's put in the form of subjunctive, but there's no doubt that it will happen. You see that also in John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him might not perish, or should not perish. That's subjunctive, but there's no doubt because God or Jesus Christ is doing the action. So even though it's in the form of a subjunctive. If it were a mere mortal man, there's a possibility that it might not happen. But when God says something will happen and expresses it with the subjunctive, it will happen.
It's all very theological, but it's really, really odd that
Well,
we have this form with something that becomes a question or a possibility or a might when
you're
you
right,
know,
it is a theological thing.
because we're making a theological statement about something.
Well, we're not making it. The Word of God is putting it in this form.
Well, I'm not doubting the theological statement. I'm just saying that it's odd that the grammar looks like this. Why would God do that in grammar? I mean, I'm just saying it seems odd that it's
Yeah.
written this way.
There's a lot of cases where it's done that way. You could ferret out each one, but okay.
Okay.
And if I am lifted up, I put it, if I be lifted up, that's more archaic form of the subjunctive. If I be, but anyway, the more modern translations are getting rid of the subjunctive. So they say, if I am lifted up. Ektes, what's that mean? Gaze means earth, he tells us.
Sorry, I'm trying to find my place.
Maybe over or
From
from
or
the earth.
out of. But from is a better
Yeah,
translation.
from the earth. I'm sorry.
If I am lifted up from the earth, antas, that's accusative, plural masculine. All people or all men. Elkuso, I will draw. Pros emauton, to myself. 1233. Tuta is a demonstrative pronoun, but it's neuter. So this thing. De is postpositive, and or but. Let's choose and. And he was saying this thing. Same signifying poio. This is dative singular masculine. Poio thanato. I chose the key word by. By what death? Melon. He was about apothneskein, to die. That's an infinitive. So he was saying this thing, signifying by what death he was about to die.
Okay.
34. Apokrythe. That's another like apokrynomai, but it's not. It's from apokrynomai, but Hishir answered. I chose then instead of therefore. Then the crowd, ha'aklos, answered him. Ekusamen. We heard ektunamu. Ek is out of or from. To na. What is namas? What is namas? What is namas? This is genitive of namas.
Yeah, it's the law.
From the law.
Yeah.
Hati. That censor because. That ha Christos, the Christ or the Messiah. Mene, you remember that word?
Remain or abide.
Remains, yeah, or abides. Estan Iona. This is an idiomatic phrase.
Forever.
Forever, yeah. Kai pos. Pos is an adverb meaning how. And how leges. It's a second singular of Lego. How I put do you say? How do you say that? Day is an impersonal verb. It occurs only in third singular or third plural. That it is necessary. That's what day means. To be lifted up. Ton huion to anthropu. You remember that
The
phrase?
Son of Man.
The Son of Man. So how do you say that it is necessary for the Son of Man to be lifted up? Question mark. Tis, now here's tis with an accent, so this is an interrogative pronoun. Who, yeah. Who estin is putas huios.
This Son of Man.
This Son of Man. Okay. Who is this Son of Man?
I found that interesting because they had to know who he is just to ask the question, because he had not referenced himself in this statement as the one named the Son of Man. I just thought it was an interesting thing, because in the very fact they asked it means that they know he's referring to himself as the Son of Man. Okay, sorry.
And do you remember in the book of Daniel?
But they may mean something else, like, who do you think you are? I mean, who is this Son of Man?
Yeah, maybe they're thinking that. But do you remember in the book of Daniel when Nebuchadnezzar had that dream? Oh, wait a minute. No. This was with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
Okay.
And they threw them in the fire.
Who is?
And there were 4 men in there.
Right.
And the 4th one was, Nebuchadnezzar said, looks like the Son of Man.
Right.
And so that became a title of the pre-incarnate Christ.
Okay. I suppose I always considered that Jesus called himself the Son of Man.
He does, yeah.
Well, but because he is the son of a human being.
That's true.
And that's in fact what part of I believe in Hebrews refers to the fact that that's also what qualifies him to be our high priest.
He had to be made like us in all respects, except for sin.
So I don't know that the Daniel verses is what gives him the title, although it is prescient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's just.
It's okay. It's okay. I think it's prescient. It's prophetic.
Yeah, it is prophetic.
Yeah.
And I think there's implied in that Jesus Christ was there with Shadrach,
that seems
Meshach,
to
and
be
Abednego.
implied. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's odd. Yeah.
Okay. Where were we? Okay.
It looks like
who is this Son of Man? Then verse 35. Apen said, is the meaning of that. Therefore, tois, dated plural masculine, to them, and Jesus is the subject. Therefore, Jesus said to them, eti, still, or yet.
Yeah, right. I just went with what he gave us.
Still, mikron chronon. Do you remember what mikros means?
Yeah, that was listed. Oh, wasn't it? I'm sorry.
A little.
A little. I'm sorry. I'm reading that wrong. What? That's not what it means. Little. Yeah, a little. Or it's interesting. It's a little. It's odd. It's almost. I wondered if it could mean a few. I mean, I know this is like an idiom. I know where this is going.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a little
Chronon, what is that word?
time.
Little time. Taphos, this is the subject.
The light.
The light. Yet still a little time, the light. And who mean? Oh, here's an interesting thing.
Among you.
Yeah, in you, but
you.
you is the way the Greeks thought of things. They considered a group of people as a unit.
Yeah.
And so quite often in a group of people means among a group of people.
It's interesting because when we keep reading, we're going to go through this, but it's interesting that we speak about the darkness, though. You are in the darkness, but we could have said it's interesting because it's like the light in you, but not you are in the light. I mean, I just think it's interesting that it's not structured the same way, right? Okay.
The light is Jesus Christ.
Right, I understand.
Yeah, I know you know that, but
And it doesn't say you are in the light.
no, but the light is
that
among
would be a
you.
problem, right? Because it
Yes.
would mean, but in the darkness, it is that we are the darkness.
Mhm.
And he's not talking about the darkness in us, but instead he turns it the other way around. I'm sorry.
Okay. So walk. Oh no, I skipped something. Yet a little time, the light is among you, referring to himself.
Right.
Walk, that's a command. Hos, that means either as or while. I chose while the light. Ekata, you have, while you have the light.
Right.
Hina me is literally so that not.
Right.
Or lest.
Right.
Lest scotia is darkness. Humas is you, it's direct object. Katalabe might overtake you. So that the darkness might not overtake you. And peripaton, the one walking, and tescotia,
in the darkness.
In
yeah.
the darkness.
So this is the end. Now this is in the darkness. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Walking in the darkness. Uk oiden, not does know or does not know. Pu is an adverb meaning where. Upage. Upago means I go or I proceed. But the one walking in the darkness does not know where he goes.
Yeah.
Or he is going. Hos, again, I chose while here instead of as. While taphos eketa, while
You the light you have.
Yeah, while you have the light. Pistuita, that's a command. And this is interesting. This is a present active imperative, but it's the same identical form as present active indicative. And so you have to use the context to decide whether to make it imperative or indicative. Well, here it doesn't make sense to do anything except a command. Believe eis taphos in the light. Hina huioi, in order that sons, photos, of light, kenesta, you might be.
Yeah, it's good. I think about the use of the exclamation point in command, and I'm thinking, we don't. Do we really say believe me, or do we don't necessarily use an exclamation point every
no.
time we speak with what,
No,
well, I'm wondering, because that would be called, would that be called the imperative in English to say,
no.
believe me?
This is simply Mounce's way of indicating that it is an imperative.
Okay, that's fair, but
Yeah.
I'm just, I think there's a question with that. So if I said, believe me, without any terrible emphasis, it's still the imperative.
It is, yeah.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Uh,
Just checking that out.
like we often say, come here.
Yeah.
Well, it's an implied you.
Yeah.
Come is imperative.
Here.
We wouldn't necessarily put an exclamation point.
So in all of this, the indicative is a description, not a request or a command.
Right. The indicative is the mood of narrative,
Right.
or there's another word we used to use.
But you don't use that for a request or a command.
No.
Okay.
And unless there's something I'm forgetting, we don't have a way in English to, by the form of the verb, distinguish between the second person indicative and the imperative. Is there a different form in the Greek for the imperative?
I'm hearing that it somehow is.
Yes, there is. There are different endings, but in the second person singular, it's often identical to the indicative.
Okay.
Okay. So some of them you can't tell from
Yeah.
the form, and others you can.
Others you can. Second singular is the oddball, and the one that's really hard to distinguish whether it's imperative or indicative. But I think, well, I better not say it because I can't be sure.
That's all right.
Well, how do you feel about doing this translation?
It was fine. I mean, given my allotted time and how long it takes me to look everything up, I cheat to the extent that I use the interlinear, but I don't trust its tenses,
Mhm.
and I don't always trust every word. So I look at them and some are obvious, and I just take that so I don't have to go through the
Mhm.
work of looking every word up
Yeah.
that I would otherwise not have remembered. But then I do. I mean, I spent a couple, 2 or 3 hours doing this, nevertheless, and took my time to look up a lot of the words to make sure that I knew what they were, because I didn't just trust the interlinear.
Mhm.
Okay, and then a lot of the tenses I looked up like every verb, or I conjugated the verbs myself, or else looked them up in the lexicons.
I've been doing translation in John, try to stay ahead of where Rod is.
Yeah.
And I'm up to chapter 19 now.
Okay.
But I remember doing 12. That was a very interesting chapter, I thought. And no, I was going to call it up here, but
Yeah.
we're about out.
I enjoyed it, actually. This is the good thing.
The meat of it.
This is what I really want to do.
Yeah.
We don't do enough of that. A lot of it's just kind of single things that a lot of them made up. And, but I had a lot of questions about, well, okay, I'll take what he said. Actually, I'm not ready to know how to do this, and I'm not going to go to Google and try to figure out, or look in his book ahead, or figure out what these things mean.
It's best to try to stay pretty much in his the order of doing things. Okay, well, for next week, Ray will be back with us, and I think we ought to proceed. I mean, we spent tonight doing this, and I think it was time well spent. I hope that Ray will be able to listen to what we've done in the review, because I think this would help him. He's had to miss a lot of it. And
This was a very helpful review for me too. I'm also glad less of my Greek was gone than I feared. So this is good.
Now, you only were absent for about 2-3 months, weren't you?
Yeah, yeah, but we had just started verbs, and verbs are, you know, I think it's an exponentially more things you can do with verbs than
Oh, that's
we were
for
just getting
sure.
through in nouns. But yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, and I'm sorry that you had to miss those important foundational chapters, but I think
that's good.
being kind of a language guy, you can pick up stuff pretty quickly.
I'll catch up.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you joining us again, Drew.
Mhm.
So the next chapter, chapter 22, gets us into, let me make sure I'm saying it right. I think it's the aorist tense. And we've got both the
You said second aorist.
second, yeah,
Well, that's
He's-
interesting. Why are we
yeah,
doing second instead of
because
first?
they're different forms.
Well, no, I get that, but it's just funny that we're going to do second before we do
Right,
first.
he does that backwards, but there's a reason for it.
That's fine. It doesn't matter. It's all right.
Yeah, second aorist is chapter 22. First aorist is chapter 23. Okay. So we'll read the chapter together next week. If you want to read it ahead of time, that's all right, but we might need to discuss certain parts of it.
All right. So this active and middle indicative. So so just never mind, I'll read it first. So going into this one will be the one that includes second, a simple past or no?
Yes, simple past or undefined.
Okay. And
Undefined aspect.
how about the first aorist? Is
Well,
it?
same thing.
It's the same way,
Yeah,
but
same.
it's two different.
The only difference
Okay.
between second and first aorist is the form.
Okay. Okay. Well, that helps to know. All right.
Yeah.
Thank
All right, well, would you like to stop the recording and we'll pray?
you. Sure.